Before I get started today, I have to brag on how awesome our God is. I'll tell you a quick story. Last week, we talked about James 5, and we talked about if you're sick to come to the elders and let them pray over you. Last week, we had one of our ladies come to the elders, and she just found out that she was pregnant, and some things were going wrong, and was told that probably the baby wouldn't make it. And so she came to the elders, and I wasn't in the room. I was in another conversation, but the elders prayed over her. And I don't understand all the technicalities of it, but she went to the doctor on Tuesday. Her hormone levels jumped 10,000 points, which is a really big deal. And they not only found the baby, but found a heartbeat and said she's 6 weeks pregnant and everybody's healthy. God's pretty awesome, huh? All right. And I just wanted to tell you that story. And the elders want you to know that they're not the secret. The secret is the one unto whom we pray. Okay? And so just wanted to let you know how great our God is. So I'm going to start a new series today, and it's called Life Verses. And these are passages of scriptures and verses that have been transformational for me. And some of them are guidelines for my life. Some of them are things I really stink at doing, and I have to remind myself over and over. But we'll talk about those. And I hope as we go through this journey that you will be reminded of life verses for yourself. That you will have passages of Scripture that are key for you, that are things that you live by, that you are constantly reminded of, whether they're mine or not, but that you will seek those out and make them a part of your journey as you go through this life, seeking to be everything God wants you to be. So the first one is Colossians 3:2, and it simply says this: set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. All right, now we're going to take it in context of everything that is there. So we're Colossians chapter 3. I'm going to start with verse 1. And I have up there verses 1 and 2, but we're going to read more than that. We're going to read 1 through 14 because it really makes all of it make sense. So that's my bad, but it's Colossians 3, 1 through 14, page 1184 if you're using the Pew Bible. Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. Did I do something wrong? Oh, turn the lights on. All right. It says 1184 right there. I know it does. All right. So Colossians 3, verse 1. Since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived, but now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its Creator. Here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. All right, so let's start this way. The idea, the overarching idea, is he starts off, since we've been raised up with Christ, and that means those of us who are followers of Jesus. We have been raised up to a new life. We have been given a new reality. And so the overarching idea of the passage is, are you ready for this? As followers of Jesus, we should live like royalty. Because we are children of the one true King. We should live like royalty. Now, the truth is, we really don't understand what that means. So I began to process, what does living like royalty look like? So I began to think about Will and Kate. Prince William and Princess Kate, he's once and future king, going to be the king of Great Britain, third in line. And I tried to imagine their life. And the first thing that comes to mind in their life is they live a little differently than I do. Right? They have bigger houses. People drive them around. They have all kinds of stuff that I'll never have. They live in castles and those sorts of things. But I began to process a little deeper, and you begin to think about their lives. And William, every decision he makes matters. And I don't know how it works, but I'm sure he has advisors that are with him all the time that say, you don't need to say that. You need to do that. When you give the speech, be sure and do this and say these words. When you're out in public, be sure and smile and be friendly. And I'm sure he's constantly being reminded that you have to act like the king. You've been trained for this your whole life, and eventually it's going to be you, but you have to act like a king every day. Every interaction that you have, every speech that you have, every conversation that takes place, every action that you do, do not do anything in your life that would offend the reputation of the royal family. And I suspect he lives every single day like that. And we think, well, it'd be worth it to get all you get, but think about how confining that would be. And so I think one of the things that Paul is saying, listen, you're a child of the King. Live like royalty. Live like you're part of the family. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. Set your mind on the things that really matter. So let's look at the passage and get some clarity here, and I think it'll help us out a little bit. Starting with verse 1, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. Now it sounds like Paul's saying the same thing twice in a different way, but that's not what he's doing. For those who are interested in the Greek, the word heart is not in the translation. It was added for English for us to understand. The idea is in verse 1, Paul is talking about how you live morally, to live a moral life. And then verse 2 says, set your mind on living in a way that honors Christ. And so really what he's saying is, live a certain way. Verse 2, this is how you do it. Focus on Christ. Focus on the King. And when you focus on the King, guess what? You'll live the life that you're supposed to live. So what he does then, and this creates two incredibly big questions for me. The first one is, what is someone who lives for earthly ways? What do they look like? And then what is someone who lives focused on things above? What does their life look like? Okay? And sure enough, Paul answers those questions for us in the passages that we read. So I'm going to go through those, and here's how he describes someone who is living with their mind focused on earthly things. Verse 5, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. So he gives us the first list of 5. And it's interesting in this first list of 5 that the first 4 have to do with sexual impurity. Okay? So we know in Colossae there was a situation going on that worship happened by going to the pagan temple and participating in sexual activity with the temple prostitutes. And so Paul was saying you've got to separate yourself from everybody else. We don't do that. So just quickly, as we go through these words, sexual immorality is for someone who is married to participate in sexual activity with someone outside of the marriage covenant. Impurity is any sexual activity before marriage. Lust is a thought. Lust and evil desires are focusing on the sexual realities of the world internally. And then he adds greed, which is idolatry, which is worshiping stuff. Now, what's interesting in this first list of 5, some of us could probably stretch and say, that's not me. I got this. I don't have to deal with those issues. Those aren't a part of my journey. I've got those conquered. Those are for other horrible people out there. But Paul doesn't stop there. Darn it, Paul. Right? He goes on. He says, because of these, the wrath of God is coming. And then he says, verse 7, you used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived. But now, verse 8, but now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these. Anger. You know what anger is? Anger is holding a grudge against someone. Being mad at them. It's an internal reality. You don't have to do anything. You can just be angry. It's an internal reality. Well, the second one then is rage. Rage is acting on anger. Rage is when you lose the fuse and it blows and you blow and you hurt someone. Rage is acting on anger. Now, I know nobody in the room's ever done either one of those, right? That's never been a part of any of our journeys. Okay. All right. So, anger and rage. The next is malice. Malice is being so angry internally that you desire and dream of hurting someone. And you think how you're going to get even. Anybody ever been down that road? It's fun for a while. But malice is figuring out how you're going to get even or get back. Slander, then, is saying things about people, whether true or not, with the intent of hurting them and bringing them down. Slander is the idea that I'm going to say things, whether it matters, doesn't matter if it's true or not, I'm going to say it because it's going to bring you down. It's going to hurt you. Slander. And then the last one after slander is filthy language from your lips. Well, that kind of throws me out, right? So what Paul says is, he says, here's a picture of someone who is not following Christ, someone who is not a redeemed child of the one true King. This is a picture of who they are. And what is so fascinating in our world today, especially in the United States, the church has decided that many of those things are okay. On the list of 10. The church has come to the conclusion, it doesn't matter. I can do all of the things on this list. I can be addicted to pornography, but as long as I don't shop at Target, I'm okay. That's what we do. It's like, you know what? What are you talking about? We so misrepresent the King. And this hypocrisy chases people away from the King. And it's got to stop. And I think that's what Paul is saying. You can't live like everybody else. It's not normal for followers of Jesus to live that lifestyle. It's not right. It's out of character. It's not who we should be. And when we set our mind on things above, those things leave our lives. Remember in the 1980s, and some of you are going to say, I wasn't born in the 80s. That happens to me in class all the time. But I remember in the 1980s that the number one TV show was The Cosby Show. Right? I don't know anybody remember this? Right? And we kept up with the Huxtable family for years because they were awesome. Right? The Huxtables had it all together. He was a doctor. She was a lawyer. They had 5 kids. They parented well. They modeled what a family should be. And in our psyche over time, what happened was Bill Cosby, the actor, became America's dad. All right? I'm not making this up. Those of you that saw that, he would go around and give speeches, and everybody would praise, wow, what an awesome guy. He's really like Heathcliff Huxtable. He's just like him. And so we began in our minds to create this picture of Bill Cosby. Wow, what an awesome guy. If we could only build our families like they built theirs. So we took him and we set him on this pedestal, and he was doing so many great things. Well, as you know, a few years ago, some allegations started coming out about him. And I'm emphasizing the word allegations. I don't know. But you start to hear these things about how he treated women, and it's like the first few times you want to say, no, I don't want to believe that Bill Cosby would do that. Right? I mean, it's like, no. Can't be true. Until today, there's 50 women that are making accusations. Okay? Now, it's not my goal to slander him. That's not the point. But the point is, all of a sudden, this guy that we held up in this great high esteem on a TV show apparently built after his real life wasn't who we thought he was, if any of this is true. And it's crushing. Because that's what hypocrisy does. It crushes our dreams and our hopes and our realities. And when followers of Jesus live a life of hypocrisy, doing the 10 things, and that's not an exhaustive list, but doing the 10 things that Paul mentions, we chase people away from the King. It's not normal for followers of Jesus to have those things in their lives. It's not normal. And if those things, if you were a follower of Jesus and those things are a part of your life, or some of them are, something's not right. There's a part of your soul that needs to be fixed. And let's be honest, we've all fallen into some of those things. And we may fall into that anger thing tomorrow. But the truth is, we need to know that it shouldn't be there. And we need to know that something needs to be fixed. And so we set our mind on things above, on the things of Christ, on the things that really matter. You see, Paul was making a very clear delineation between the things that matter to God and the things that matter to us. And it's so easy to pursue the things that matter to us. And we forget that it is the King and his kingdom that matter most. So Paul goes on then and he begins to tell us, what is it that someone who has their mind set on things above, what do they look like and what are their characteristics? So he gives us that list in verse 12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Ow. Compassion is having mercy on people, seeing their hurts and wanting to do something. Kindness is being friendly to people. Humility is putting people above yourself. Gentleness is the opposite of being harsh. Patience is patience. And you began to look at the picture of what Paul writes and what he creates for someone who has their mind set on things above, and you realize that it's someone who loves people. Someone who has put the King and his kingdom first, puts people above themselves. And it's not something you have to try to do. When you set your mind on things above, it's just what you do. It's just what happens. And I think too many times we lose sight of what really matters. We lose sight of eternity. We lose sight of the reality that one day this life will be through and one day I will be in the presence of the King and in his kingdom forever. And we lose sight. We have a new member of our family, and I brought some pictures for you. That's what everybody says when you look at him. All right? This is Jax. Jax is our West Highland White Terrier. And Jax has caused me to not do the filthy language thing well. Jax is a puppy, and he is adorable. Any place you take him, people just look at, oh my goodness, what an adorable dog. But Jax has a problem. Actually, he has a couple of problems. He hasn't figured out where he's supposed to use the potty. We're making progress, and he's getting better. And he hasn't figured out what things he can chew on and things he can't. He is a puppy, right? And so it'd be real easy to look at Jax and be so aggravated and frustrated that I quit. But the reality is you have to look at the long-term picture. And so I look at Jackson and I think, all right, I know where this is headed 6 months to a year from now. It's going to be totally different. I'm going to be watching the Cowboy games and he's going to be sitting in my lap and we're going to be cheering together. Just let me pretend. He's going to know that when it's time to go to the bathroom, he goes to the door and lets us know he wants to go outside. And he's not only going to be adorable, he's going to be awesome. That's coming. But too many times, it's so easy to focus on now. I've used words in the last 6 weeks that I haven't used in a long, long time. I confess openly. But it's in those times that I lose sight of the big picture of what's ahead. Spiritually, we do the same thing. When we find ourselves stuck in anger, when we find ourselves stuck in malice, when we find ourselves stuck in sexual sin, when we find ourselves doing those things that are contrary to what followers of Christ should do, we set our minds on earthly stuff. We set our minds on the temporary. We set our minds on the stuff that doesn't last forever. Because we want gratification here and now. Well, Paul wrote, set your mind on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father. Set your mind on the eternal stuff. I've had an opportunity to do this ministry gig for a little over 30 years. And I know I don't look near old enough to have that happen, but it is true. Just kidding. All right, and so one of the things about this journey that has become painfully obvious to me is regardless of what church we're at, regardless of where we are, I can know what someone is focused on by the questions they ask and the things they complain about. I can know what someone is focused on based on the questions that they ask and the things they complain about. You see, one of the things that we have to always remember, that everything we do as individuals and as a family of faith has to be about the King and his kingdom. Period. It's not about notoriety. It's not about people being impressed with us. It's not about how well we do A, B, C, or D. It's always, always, always about the King and his kingdom. And if we ever lose sight of that, we might as well lock the doors and go away. Because we should always have our mind set on things above, not on earthly things. So, I thought that maybe it might be a good idea if we created church t-shirts to remind us. So maybe if we made a t-shirt, on one side, we could put the church logo. And maybe people would ask, what does that stand for? And then maybe on the back side, maybe the staff could think of some phrase to put on the back of the shirt that every time we saw it, it would remind us that we're not the priority, but instead the King and the kingdom are the priority. I wonder what that phrase might be. I wonder what phrase we could put on the t-shirt that would always, every time we see it, we would stop and we would say, oh, wait a minute, this isn't about us, but it's about King Jesus and his kingdom. I wonder I wonder what phrase we could put on the shirt to make that happen. Pray with me.